What do I need to know in order to take your job? It was an absolute game changer in my career.
Welcome to the Multifamily Mind with Steve Wunch, a podcast dedicated to thought leadership in the multifamily universe. During each episode, we'll explore topics like leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, prop tech, or whatever's on the mind of our multifamily expert. We are creating a thought leadership community where ideas are explored and shared in order to bolster multifamily owners, operators, and those who have a heart for the multifamily industry. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Steve Wunch, and I'd like to welcome you to the first episode of the Multifamily Mind, super powered by SalesMail. I'm excited to be here this morning with a guy that I've known for several years, Gary Gregory. Gary brings transformational experiences, tools, and knowledge to equip the super within you so that you can steward the fantastic around you, which I love. You may be familiar with his podcast, The Super Fantastic Exchange. He is a husband and father. He is a best-selling author. He's worked in the arenas of student housing and multifamily leadership for over 20 years. And he's a former sponsored triathlete, which I was really impressed when I read that, Gary. A sponsored triathlete, Ironman, and ultra marathoner. Let's welcome him to the show.
Man, I'm going to give myself a hand clap. Just that introduction sounded pretty amazing.
Yeah. How you doing this morning?
Man, I get to hang out with you, Steve. I'm on the Multifamily Mind podcast. I mean, what else could I ask for? I mean, this is a super day.
It is a super fantastic day, and you are the first guest ever on the Multifamily Mind podcast. So that's a place of honor, my friend.
I am so honored, double honored, because one, Steve, I get to hang out with you, and two, on your podcast, being the first guest. I am doubly honored, sir. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your super fantastic exchange. I know you've got several different books that kind of fall in that vernacular as well. So I think our audience would like to hear a little bit more about that.
Oh, so the super fantastic exchange has been kind of a curiosity exploration for me, where I love inspiring people. And when I say inspiring people, I love people that inspire others. You know, I do my best to inspire people, but I've just been so intrigued with people like you, Steve, that inspire other people. I mean, I truly believe it's a gift and it's an honor to be able to inspire other people. So my curiosity has always been like, what inspires these inspiring people? So it was an opportunity for me to connect with some incredible leaders across all industries, across all levels of roles and titles and so forth. It was an excuse for me to connect with them and ask them a simple question: what inspires you? And I cannot tell you, since 2021, I've been doing this podcast, over 100 episodes. I've met with some incredible leaders, authors, and psychologists, a professional wrestler, all kinds of titles. And I've asked them just one question: what inspires you? And I have just had incredible conversations and revelations about what inspires these inspiring leaders. So it's been an incredible journey to be able to connect with so many different people, as well as you, Steve, and have just inspired me by learning what inspires them.
That's awesome. I love the way you support and connect with the people in your network. It's a true gift, and I'm glad you're here this morning. I also wanted to just touch for a second on something maybe a little bit more personal. Your daughter is actually an author now too, isn't she?
She is. It was so incredible. I'll tell you a quick little story. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, she ended up writing me a little book, a handwritten book. She stole some paper from my printer, and she wrote this story out. She drew it on the paper, and she gave it to me for Father's Day. And I was reading through the book. I cracked up at the ending. I thought it was just an incredible story. And I asked my daughter, I was like, do you want to turn this into a book? And she said, yes. So we ended up going through the process. I mean, to create a book, there is a process you go through. And for a children's book, just as much. I mean, you find an illustrator, you edit the storyboard. We connected with my editor that has helped me with my books. And she was sat in all these meetings. She sat in and made decisions on what this book will ultimately become, went through the whole process and ended up becoming a published author at 12 years old. And it's just, it was such a neat as a dad, that was such an incredible experience for me to watch her go through this process and to support her go through this process. So now she can say she's a published author at such a young age. And now she knows there's nothing she can't do. I mean, she ended up writing a children's book. So it was a neat legacy creating experience to help her do something that I've done as well. And just watching her go through it was super exciting.
That's really awesome. And what's her book called?
It is called That's Not My Chicken.
I thought so. Yeah.
It's an incredible story. It's funny. It's got a great plot twist. You can buy it on Amazon. The illustrations are beautiful. The storyboard is great. And again, the plot twist at the end is absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. Cool beans. So kind of let's hop into topics of conversation this morning. So, the whole purpose behind this podcast, Gary, is to be a space for thought leaders in the multifamily arena to share their thoughts, their insights, what's on their radar. I know that your Super Fantastic Me is kind of an opportunity for a leader to be self-reflective and to kind of work through. It's actually a workbook that helps you become the best version of yourself so that you can then help others become the best version of themselves. So leadership is high on your radar. So let's talk a little bit about what's on your mind in regard to leadership these days.
So one of the things for me with leadership is there's a quote, if you will, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but I believe it's an old quote, is, when is the best time to plant a tree? And the answer comes back 20 years ago. And then the follow-up question is, when's the next best time to plant a tree? And the answer is now. And so for me, that question kind of got me thinking in regards to leadership. When is the best time to start training a leader before they get promoted? When's the next best time to start training a leader the day they get promoted? And so for me, leadership is a conversation about continuous education, about developing yourself. And so I want to make sure that, and this is kind of a story that I tell because it was my story. And so for leadership, what's important is never relying on other people or external factors to be your coach or to be your teacher. I think it falls, or it's incumbent upon every person to take charge of their training, to take charge of their growth. And if you end up waiting on your company that you're working for to train you to become a leader, then you're missing out on opportunities. You're missing out on time. And that happened to me. And no disrespect to any company that I've worked for. I've worked some incredible companies. But what happened was, when I was a community manager for an extended period of time, I was head down into my work. I was head down into, all the reports I had to do and, taking care of the residents and my team and the community, all the things, all the tasks that as a community manager, I was responsible for. But the biggest thing that I was responsible for me was my growth, my development. And I missed that. And I just kind of fell into, and I kind of two buckets, if you will, a normal bucket and a not normal bucket. The normal bucket is you're head down, you're doing the things, you're doing your tasks in your whatever role you may be. The not normal bucket is where you are doing the things that you need to do and you're developing yourself. You're doing things to grow yourself for the next level. And I go back to that conversation or that quote, when's the best time to start training a new leader before they get promoted? I think that's everyone's responsibility to start training yourself for the next promotion. Get ready for that next promotion before you get promoted. Raise your hand. And I think that's what a lot of people do when they're head down. They forget to raise their hand and say, hey, I am interested in growth. I'm interested in leadership. But you have to lead yourself first and become that leader that your next promotion needs. I think a lot of us wait to get promoted and then start becoming that leader that role needs. And again, kind of go back to my story. I was a community manager for a number of years and I had my head down. I was in the normal bucket until I realized, and granted, the company that I worked for offered training here and there, training classes, which were fantastic. But the training classes were for my bucket, for the things, the tasks that I were doing. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely valuable. But I needed to get myself ready for the next level. And so what it took for me was to finally raise my head outside of that normal bucket and go, wow, what do I need to do to get myself ready for the next level? What do I need to do to lead myself into the promotion? I was waiting for other people to lead me into the promotion. Right. And I sat there waiting for years. And I wish I had known this earlier. So that's why it's my mission is to encourage people to lead themselves into their next promotion. Is I raised my head out of the normal bucket and I was like, what am I doing? And it took myself jumping out of the normal bucket, jumping into the not normal bucket, still doing all the things I needed to do, not missing those things. And I added a layer to it. I was like, I need to lead myself into the next opportunity, the next promotion. What are the things I need to do to lead myself into those opportunities? Once I started doing that, it was a game changer. It was an absolute game changer in my career. And I started gaining valuable skills. I started asking questions. I started looking for alignments and mentors and coaches that could help me grow into that next level before I jumped into it. And once that happened, once I started building some momentum, I raised my head out of the normal bucket, then I got promoted. I continued to keep working on that, keep pushing on that. I got promoted again. I just, it started getting addicting when you're in the not normal bucket and you're doing the things you need to do and you're adding layers to your skill sets and your talent and you start building mastery over some skills. I got more promotions. And so I realized there was a template to leadership, to self-leadership, and it is getting in the not normal bucket and leading yourself to that next promotion or whatever it may be, whether, if you want a promotion and you can utilize this kind of format or template, if you will, you can apply it to a lot of different things. And so for me, I was doing it with, hey, I want a promotion. I want to get to the next level. So I was applying this template of leading myself, teaching myself or finding information, getting coaches, getting mentors, and bringing in alignments that would help me to grow for the promotion. But I also added this template to other, like, what if I could write a book? How cool would that be? And so I applied that template to this goal, if you will. And I ended up writing multiple books. And so being not normal means, training yourself, pushing yourself, leading yourself, if you will, to the next level before you get there. And that, for me, that's just, I'm so passionate about leading yourself first. So, and getting yourself ready for the next level before you get there. It's such a passion of mine.
I love it. You mentioned a couple of different things that really struck a chord. First is, the only thing that you can be responsible for is what you can control. And the only thing really that you can control is yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And then secondly, kind of being brave to raise your hand. And also, like, not necessarily your direct leader being the person who's going to provide you with the experience or skill or tool that you need to move yourself to that next. You mentioned the word mentorship or mentoring, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how did you kind of leverage the folks around you, because that's part of your super fantastic exchange too, is, making yourself great so that you can make others around you great as well.
So Steve, I'll share with you. So when I was working for a company, I saw this individual in a role that I was like, that's awesome. I want to do that role. I want to be, this person that is in that role is doing some incredible things. They're an incredible leader. I want their job. So I told my supervisor at the time, I was like, I want that job. I flat out told my supervisor, I want that job. And so he was like, okay, so what are you going to do to get yourself ready for that job? And I was like, that's a good question. And what it took for me, and to your point, Steve, was finding that mentor. And it ended up being that person that I wanted to take their job. I was very honest with them because I knew the person that was in that role wanted to grow, continue to grow. And I knew there would be value in a person knowing that maybe they're kind of creating their replacement. And so I reached out to that leader and I flat out told that person, I want your job. How can I get myself ready to take your job when you get promoted? And she ended up becoming my mentor. I followed her. I watched her closely. I asked her questions and got myself ready for that role. So ultimately, she got promoted and I ended up getting promoted into that role because I got myself ready. I connected with that role before there was that opportunity. And so you can take that back. If you're a community manager and you want to be a district manager or a regional manager, get into getting yourself ready to take that job before that opportunity presents itself. If you're a regional manager, you want to be a vice president, get into that role, get yourself ready before that opportunity presents itself. Yep. Get ready before you have to get ready, and be honest, be open. I think a good leader will recognize, hey, look, eventually I want to get promoted. And so to make that easier, I need to find my replacement.
Right. Yeah.
And if that leader says, hey, look, this person came up to me and says they want my job, instead of a normal leader will go, oh, no, you don't. But a not normal leader will say, absolutely, let me get you ready. Because if I can get you ready to take my spot, then that just helps me take my next spot. And so that is such a critical component. You find that mentor. If you're a community manager, use your regional manager to mentor you. If you're a regional manager, use your vice president to mentor you, or whatever role you define yourself that you want to move into. Connect with that person that you want to become, that leader you want to become, and say, how did you get there? What do I need to know in order to take your job?
Yeah.
And I promise you, money back guarantee, it is a valuable approach to leading yourself, connecting with the people that you need to connect with so that you can get ready to take that next level before it's available, before it's ready.
So how do you prevent I call them the imposters, or maybe not an imposter that says, oh, I can't do that job, or I could never do that job, but there's no way I could ever ask my leader that question, or I could never say to my direct supervisor, I want your job, because the atmosphere that they're operating in right now isn't what the atmosphere you are operating in. So how do you kind of circumnavigate that weirdness when maybe you don't have the culture at your company that says, we promote leaders from within and we want you to do these types of things?
Yeah. One, if you're in a culture in which that's scary to ask, maybe you want to revisit or reconsider, where you're at. I'm not saying, quit or whatever the scenario might be, but you want to make sure you're in an environment, a culture that is conducive to that. However, that being said, if you're in that culture and you don't feel comfortable with your immediate supervisor or whatever role you want to take eventually, LinkedIn is chock full of leaders that will embrace your, willingness to grow and will help you and become your coach, become your mentor. So, for example, if you're a community manager and you want to become a district manager or regional manager, and your upline you're not comfortable with that conversation, go find another regional manager on LinkedIn, connect with him or her and say, listen, I would love to do your job one day. Maybe not your specific job, but that role. What do I need to do in order to get there? What is it that I need to learn? What is it that I should kind of embrace or study or connect with in order to get there one day? I promise you, you will find another person in that role that you want to obtain that will connect with you, that will support you, that will help you along the way, whether it's in a coaching capacity or in a mentor capacity, but just reach out. Yeah. That self-leadership requires you, and that's your responsibility is to grow. Your responsibility is to be more than where you are right now. So it is your responsibility. This is some tough love moment, Steve, that I don't want to share with everybody. It's your responsibility to grow. Mm-hmm. And not just stay stagnant. I get it. There's some people that are happy with where they're at. Hey, I'm good being a lease consultant. I'm good being a community manager. Nothing wrong with that. Right. But you need to be the best lease consultant. You need to be the best community manager. And you just can't sit there in your normal bucket and just head down and do the things that you need to do. Your responsibility is to grow and be the best version of who you're supposed to be so that you add value to the people around you. But if you want to grow, if you want to get promoted, go find that person that's in that role. If you can't find that person at your company that you're working with, go jump on LinkedIn. There's thousands of people out there that will pause, support you, help you along the way to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think multifamily, more than other industries that I see present on LinkedIn, is probably one of the best places for that to happen. There's even like multifamily mentor groups that are out there. Tara Samuels has one that's got over 300 members, and it's people from leasing consultants all the way up to the C-suite. So you're getting the opportunity to connect with people that you may not normally interact with in the chain of command that you're currently working in. So I love leveraging that resource for sure. I love how you're really putting the onus on us. Nobody else is responsible for your growth. Nobody else is responsible for your development. They might have tools and ways you can get there, but the only person who really owns that is you. So I love that you're driving that home.
So true, so true. And if you wait for other people to move you along, you're going to be waiting a long time. It's your responsibility, and I think that's what held me back for the longest time in my career. Was I was waiting for them to promote me. I was like, I'm doing my thing. Yeah. And nothing. But it took me taking it to the next level, being responsible for myself, raising my hand, getting in the not normal bucket to make things happen.
And sometimes that not normal bucket isn't comfortable, right?
No, not at all. It's, you have to stretch. There needs to be a constant tension on your growth. You can choose hard or you can choose difficult. Difficult is just sitting where you are and just staying the same. It is what it is. I'm happy being here. This is just, my lot in life. That's difficult. Hard is stretching yourself, growing yourself, spending time learning new things, reading books, watching, attending webinars, whatever the case may be. So you can choose difficult or you can choose hard. It's your choice. Difficult is just being where you're at. Hard is choosing the road of, hey, I'm going to stretch myself. I'm going to grow. I'm going to create tension from where I am now to where I want to go. There's got to be constant tension there. Otherwise, you're sitting in a comfort zone, if you will. I know that sounds very trite, but it is extremely true. Choose difficult, stay where you're at, your comfort zone. Choose your hard, stretch yourself.
So what about when a leader gets the opportunity or someone gets the opportunity to be promoted to that next level, but they might not have all the people skills that they need. So I think in multifamily, one of the things that we see often is like a service manager gets promoted into that, a technician gets promoted into that service manager role, but they really haven't had any exposure to how to lead people, how to have difficult conversations, how to provide feedback. What are some recommends that you could give folks that maybe are in that new place, but feeling really unequipped or not equipped well enough to do the good work that they want to do?
Yeah. If you get promoted before, let's say
because it happens all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All the time.
I think a lot of promotions happen. You're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Or a warm body is better than nobody.
Exactly. You're filling a spot.
Yep.
What I encourage people to do, so if you find yourself in that position where you just kind of they're like, hey, you get in here. Start asking questions. Be open for feedback. I mean, probably one of the biggest things is just talk to your upline, talk to your immediate supervisor, say, hey, listen, man, I want to be the best that I can be for this role. What are your expectations? Can you help me get there? Have those conversations with your immediate supervisor and start asking questions. What do I need to do in order to be the best that I can be in this particular role? Start asking those questions. Again, kind of going back to your earlier comment, Steve, if you're kind of in a culture where that's not conducive to that, then again, it goes back to the responsibility of that person to go out and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Go find resources, because that becomes your responsibility. You said yes to the promotion. Mm-hmm. You could have said no, but you said yes, which I applaud you. You said yes to that promotion, even though maybe you're not ready, or maybe you feel like you're not ready. You could have the skills to do it, but you're just, getting a promotion can be scary.
Yep.
But because you said yes, it is now your responsibility to start growing yourself and start figuring it out. You can't use the excuse for an extended period of time as, I didn't know. You can't use that excuse for an extended period of time. So it's your responsibility to go start learning. And again, Steve, like you said, there's so many resources out there online. There's, the National Apartment Association. There's local state associations where you can get connected. There's books, there's webinars, there's podcasts that you can connect with and figure things out. Again, going back to the mentor, that Tara Samuels, find a mentor, find a coach that can help you along in that process. But it is your responsibility to either start asking those questions, figuring out what it is you need to do to improve yourself, to learn those skills, to hone those skills to do it. Or if you're not in that culture where you feel comfortable asking those questions, it's your responsibility to go find it, go work on it. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. That's a part of growing. That's a part of learning. Don't let that set you back. Those mistakes are lessons. Those mistakes are opportunities to say, hey, look, I tried it this way. That didn't work out too well. Let me learn from that. Let me go this way. And so again, because you said yes comes with responsibility, and it's incumbent upon you to figure it out, to work on it. Don't assume that your company, your leader is going to hold your hand along the way. Again, it is a tough love conversation with yourself that you have to figure out, but you have to do it. There's too many resources out there for an individual to find and connect with and engage with, where you say, well, I didn't know, I can't do that. Because you said yes, and you get promoted, you said yes, then all right, you're responsible for growing yourself. And there's so many resources out there to help you do that.
Yeah, regardless of the culture, even,
Yep. Absolutely.
Love it. That's great stuff, Gary.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people they expect it to find them versus find it for themselves, And
that truly was me. In my earlier days, I was like, well, hey, my head's down and I'm performing well at the community. So they're going to see this, they're going to see me. But it took me going, hey, I want to take it to the next level. Let me get myself ready. Yeah.
It's almost kind of
It's
one of those, it's almost like Vision Quest or, putting it out into the universe to actually say, I want that.
yeah.
And to let people know, I remember sitting in a Disney Institute session, and Lee Cockrell actually came and spoke to our group. And he asked the room, how many of you, by show of hands, how many of you are training your replacement? And like 2 people raised their hands, and he was like, shame on all of you. He's like, that's what a good leader does is, create that, make themselves excellent and exceptional and super fantastic so that they can make others around them super fantastic.
And I think that I find that in a lot of conversations that if a company will hesitate promoting somebody because they know once they promote you, there's a vacuum, and that creates friction, that creates problems for that company. And so you end up doing yourself a disservice because you want to get promoted and the company wants to promote you, but they understand if there's nobody to fill that vacuum, then they're creating a problem. Your promotion becomes a problem to that company. And so if you're able to say, hey, look, I want to, this promotion's an opportunity for me. And when you promote me, I've got this perfect replacement to fill the gap, fill the vacuum that's created from my promotion. And the company's going, this is fantastic. We get a double win because we thought we were just going to promote one person, but Steve, you did such a great job by training your replacement. This is a double win for the company. And you're like, I'm just coaching and trying to train my replacement. Hey, it fills the vacuum. That's great.
I mean, we oftentimes hear operators talk about building their bench, but I think so many times managers, especially frontline managers, they're so territorial about what they do and how it's done that I think they do themselves a disservice by not delegating and giving the team some opportunity to get exposure to things that they need to learn in order to be ready for that moment when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that is extremely valuable for a leader is, if you've got a downline and you get them promoted, you become that leadership factory. You're like, dude, Steve is like, every one of his team members are getting promoted to this position and that position. What is Steve doing? He's like, he is adding value to the company because we're constantly having to replace Steve's team because he's getting them ready for their next level. And Steve's doing incredible. So Steve becomes that leadership factory and the company's going, Steve's like the most valuable player in our team because he is creating greater results by lifting up his team. And to your point, Steve, I think a lot of leaders have a mindset where it's a very defensive approach. They're like, don't you get, like you said, don't get in my territory. You stay where you're at, because I don't want anybody challenging my comfortable, position. But I'm telling you, there's 2 ways to do it is you train your replacement so that it's easier for the company to promote you, or you take your team and you're like, boom, boom, you're promoting them out to different and better roles. And, the company's going, Steve's our guy. We need him everywhere because he is that one that's elevating the team and getting them promoted to either his position or to other positions. And that is a leadership factory developing leader. And that's ultimately who you want to be.
Love it. Love it. So let's transition from this conversation. Part of being a good leader is knowing the skills and what your team brings to the table, even knowing them individually and what makes them tick. And one of the things that you talk about that I love is the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And I think, the conversation so far for the leaders that are listening has been really insightful. It's very much about me and what I do with myself in order to make myself the best version I can be in order to help my team become the best team that they can be. And one of the ways you do that is through motivation. So can you we don't have a whole lot of time to spend on this topic, but I know it's a passion of yours. It's something that we've connected on a couple of different times. So talk a little bit about those 5 languages of appreciation and why there's value in learning those languages.
Ooh, so good. So Dr. Gary Chapman wrote a book, Five Love Languages, and I think it's an incredible book because what it does is it gives, in that book, it gives you insight into your partner. It gives you insight into yourself. What is your love language? How do you receive or want to receive, from your partner? And it also helps you understand how your partner likes to receive things. So what Dr. Gary Chapman did was he wrote a book. He's like, man, this works for personal relationships. How can this work for professional relationships as well? Because, leaders spend just as much time with their colleagues as they do, their family. And so he wrote this book, The 5 Appreciation Languages in the Workplace, taking the love languages, and it's applicable. It's incredibly applicable. They've done incredible research on this. So the 5 languages, love languages and appreciation languages are the same. There's words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and they put quotations, physical touch. And that is, of course,
HR has joined the call.
I know. I got a call from HR. But that is, of course, physical touch is the least chosen language in the workplace anyway. But these languages of appreciation is how a leader can better connect, better engage with their team, and just showing appreciation. And what's remarkable is the studies that Dr. Gary Chapman and his group have done is it has shown that tangible gifts is the least desired appreciation language, which kind of blows your mind. People think, if I give them a dollar raise or if I give them a pizza party, they're going to be happy. That's not the case. The research shows that words of affirmation is the most desired language of appreciation. And then it goes into quality time and acts of service. And we could describe those for a while as a whole workshop. I ended up getting certified to be a facilitator for this workshop. And it's just absolutely fascinating. But the benefits of a leader understanding their team's appreciation language is absolutely incredible. And it includes the team ends up showing up for work. That's a great start. It's also, less staff turnover. Who wouldn't want to reduce their staff turnover? And you can do that simply by understanding, how does my team like to receive appreciation? Is it words of affirmation? Is it quality time? Is it acts of service? What is it that they like to do? And if you know these things, then your team's going, oh, my leader knows me. My leader is filling my bucket of appreciation, and that fills me up. And again, one of the benefits of engaging with your team is, what is it? It's higher customer satisfaction and increased productivity. So if you as a leader, you spend a little bit of time giving your team an assessment and says, hey, what is your love language? They take this quick little assessment. And now this leader's got this secret code into their team. And it gives examples, and it's extremely simple to say, okay, I know Joe likes words of affirmation, which basically is XY, this kind of approach. Jan over here, she likes quality time. So I just need to spend a little time conversing with her about her projects, what she's doing, stuff like that. Knowing these things and you're engaging with it, there's just all these incredible benefits, better customer satisfaction, less turnover, increased productivity by a simple approach to understanding their language of appreciation. It's mind blowing to me that how easy it is to create a more satisfied team. Amazing.
It's almost like leadership DNA, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you get one of those 23andMe tests back to understand who you are, and maybe there's health issues that you need to be aware of. I see that this languages of appreciation in the workplace in sort of the same light. It's a really great insightful tool.
And there's so many other assessments that you could take, like the DISC. There's Briggs and Stratton. Myers-Briggs. I mean, there's tons of Briggs and Stratton, Myers-Briggs. It's all the things. Those are great quality, very well researched assessments and tools that you can use. But what those prove, and this is just, this is my take on these things. This is not, just my take. My take is that these assessments are like, okay, how do these people work? How do they work? And that's an incredible understanding to know. They're a little more complex and, the details engaged with that, but it's how they work. Now, if you want to understand why they work, that's the foundation to getting to how they work.
Yeah.
And so if you get into the why, you're like revving up the engine, you're getting that head start into how they're end up going to work. So again, the appreciation language it's the fuel to how they end up working. So as a leader, if you understand words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, if you understand those things, then you're giving them fuel on how they end up working. This is mind blowing to me.
That's awesome. So big recommend to the listening audience to tap into that resource for sure.
Yeah. Grab the book, read the book. I mean, the assessment it's simple. It's easy. You can find a facilitator to present it to your team so they all really understand what it means. But it's an incredibly valuable tool, and it resonates with me so deeply.
Love it. I can feel that for sure. Yeah. Well, speaking of feeling, I'm feeling like this has been a great conversation, and I wish we had a lot more time to spend with one another. But because time is of the essence, I have a final question that I want to ask you.
Ooh.
So, as the multifamily mind creates this space for thought leaders to share their thoughts, one thing we also want to tap into is what do you see on the horizon? Maybe a trend or a prediction or some audacious multifamily take. So that's my question for you is, what is your most audacious take about multifamily? And we define audacious here on the Multifamily Mind as extremely bold or daring, recklessly brave, or fearless, like an audacious explorer. So let's use the term an audacious leader.
Oh, thank you. I love the word audacious. I don't think we use that word enough in our vernacular. So I'm going to hang on to that word. I'm going to try and reuse it again today. So thank you for sharing that. So Steve, here's my audacious take. And a lot of conversations about the economy, a lot of conversations about, how things are going to change, all these things that are occurring and how are we going to deal with these things? So my audacious take, Steve, that I want to share with you is we need to start having some really deep conversations about change management. Now, I can talk about change management, but I want to kind of shift that mindset about change management into change leadership. Because in my perspective, change management is simply, okay, we're reacting to the change that's happening. We are an effect, EFFECT, an effect of the change. That's change management. We're like, these things have happened. How are we going to deal with it? What I want to encourage multifamily is to get into the mindset of change leadership. And what that does is that drives the change. That drives how are we going to address the change that we are creating, we are making. And so change leadership becomes where the leaders say, okay, listen, we are going to make these changes. We are going to affect change, AFFECT. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to get prepared for the change when it comes around. And so I think a lot of us, we're extremely reactionary to the change, and that's what created change management. But I think we need to start pushing change leadership so that we start creating the change. We start getting prepared for the changes that we are going to create. And you can get into conversations about, sales of multifamily companies and third parties, real estate. You can get into, the difficulties with occupancy and stuff like that. So we know what's coming. So now let's lead the change. Let's get prepared for the change before it happens. And so I think that mindset needs to be a critical approach to multifamily, where the leaders need to get into the mindset of let's affect the change so that we're not an effect of the change. That's my audacious take.
That's pretty good. That's audacious enough for me. I think, to your point, we've been so reactive as an industry, and I think it's probably just human nature that is reactive. But a lot of the thread that I see running through our conversation today is, you own it, you want it, go for it, but you have to be proactive regarding everything that we've touched on today, including this last audacious take. So I think that's a great theme for us to end on.
Love it. Thank you, sir.
You bet. This has been a great conversation. You've been listening to the Multifamily Mind, super powered by SalesMail. I'm Steve Wunch. Thanks so much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Multifamily Mind podcast, brought to you by SalesMail, the easiest way to send personalized video via email, text, and CRM. To learn more, go to salesmail.com. And remember, always be audacious. Until next time, I'm Steve Wunch. Have a great week.